Picture this. You walk into a room where every person is playing a game that no one dares admit exists. Their smiles are polite, their words cordial, but behind each gaze, there's calculation. The air is thick not with conversation, but with strategy. Everyone wants something: recognition, dominance, influence, security, and whether they admit it or not, they are willing to outmaneuver, outwit, or quietly undermine to achieve it. Now ask yourself, are you the hunter or the prey in this hidden contest? The paradox of power is that it is both everywhere and nowhere. It hides in the subtle exchange of a compliment that is really a weapon, in the silence that dominates a negotiation, in the glance that says more than a speech. Outsmarting others is not about raw intelligence or cunning manipulation alone. It is about recognizing the invisible battlefield where rules are unspoken, yet absolutely binding. To enter this arena unaware is to be devoured. To enter with awareness, however, is to awaken a potential most never touch. The unsettling truth is this: most people are outsmarted not because they are unintelligent, but because they are unconscious. They believe power games exist only in politics, boardrooms, or history books. They fail to see that power is negotiated daily, in marriages, friendships, workplaces, even casual interactions with strangers. The first rule of absolute power, then, is awareness. To outsmart anyone, you must first see what most refuse to see. Consider this: when someone tells you, "I don't care about power," they are either lying to you or lying to themselves. Even the monk in his monastery has influence over his disciples. Even the artist who claims to shun recognition still longs for an audience. To deny power is to surrender it. To acknowledge it is to wield it. Outsmarting others begins by stripping away illusions, yours first, theirs second. But here is the paradox that unsettles the soul. To truly outsmart others, you must not look outward first, you must look inward. You must study your own mind, your weaknesses, your desires, your predictable patterns. If you remain a mystery to yourself, you will always be an open book to others. The cruelest victories are often those where a rival simply uses your own habits against you. How many times have you seen someone's arrogance become their downfall? How many times has impatience made a clever person foolish? The first stage of power is self-mastery. Outsmarting others without mastering yourself is like wielding a blade without a handle. You will cut yourself before you cut anyone else. The art, then, is discipline in speech, in emotion, in reaction. When provoked, you must appear unmoved. When flattered, you must appear unimpressed. When tempted, you must appear indifferent. The less predictable you become, the harder you are to outsmart. Think of it as a psychological chessboard. Most people reveal their moves before they even touch a piece. They sigh before surrender, smile before victory, grimace before loss. If you can train yourself to reveal nothing, to control the theater of your own presence, you suddenly gain a terrifying advantage. People will project onto you what they wish to see, and you, quietly, will decide whether to let them continue in illusion or crush them with reality. To awaken this mindset, you must adopt a higher vantage point. Instead of being consumed by the moment, you must step outside of it. Imagine watching yourself from the ceiling, detached, studying not only your words but the power dynamics swirling around you. This detachment is not coldness, it is clarity. The one who sees most clearly is the one who wins, regardless of who appears stronger in the moment. As Sun Tzu once warned in The Art of War, if you know the enemy and know yourself, you need not fear the result of 100 battles. Notice how he begins not with the enemy, but with yourself. Outsmarting others begins not with trickery, but with awakening, and awakening always starts within. And so the question becomes, if power begins with self-mastery, what are the rules that govern how you turn inner control into outward dominance? The next step is to learn the subtle laws, those unwritten rules, that bend others to your will without them ever realizing it. If self-mastery is the foundation of power, then influence is its architecture. Once you can govern yourself, the next battlefield opens, bending others to your will. This is not about brute force or domination. Those strategies breed resistance and rebellion. True power operates quietly, invisibly, in the spaces between words and gestures. The art of outsmarting others is not in making them obey against their will. but in making them believe your will is theirs. The first unwritten law is control perception, and you control reality. Human beings do not act on objective truth. They act on what they perceive. If you can shape another person's perception of you, of themselves, or of the situation, you've already altered their behavior without raising suspicion. Think of the leader who frames a retreat as a strategic withdrawal, or the colleague who masks ambition beneath humility. Outsmarting others requires linguistic precision, not just what you say, but how you allow others to interpret it. The second law is the power of silence. Most people are desperate to fill the emptiness of conversation, afraid of the discomfort silence creates. But silence is a weapon, a mirror that forces the other to reveal themselves. In negotiations, the one who speaks first often loses. In conflict, the one who waits out the storm gains the advantage. Outsmarting others means mastering the restraint to say nothing until the moment your words will have maximum impact. The third law is the art of misdirection. Rarely should your true intention be fully visible. Like a skilled magician, your left hand distracts while your right hand performs the trick. If your rival believes they understand your plan, you've already lost because they will prepare against it. Instead, offer decoys, small confessions, exaggerated flaws, or apparent priorities, while your real strategy moves unseen. Outsmarting is not lying. It is allowing others to believe what they want to believe while you quietly shape outcomes. The fourth law is appeal to desire, not reason. People are not moved by logic alone. They are moved by fear, ambition, pride, and longing. If you present them only with facts, you will fail. If you connect to their hidden desires, they will follow you willingly. The power broker who whispers to a subordinate's ego will always win more loyalty than the one who offers a rational argument. Outsmarting means identifying the invisible levers in a person's heart and pulling them gently until they move where you want them. The fifth law is never reveal the full extent of your power. To show your hand completely is to invite retaliation. A blade half hidden is more terrifying than one in plain sight, because uncertainty multiplies fear. Reveal only fragments of your ability, never the entirety. When people underestimate you, you can strike with precision. When they overestimate you, you need not strike at all. Their fear will paralyze them. Either way, concealment amplifies control. Notice how these laws do not crush others, they bend them. Crushing creates enemies, but bending creates followers, even admirers. Outsmarting is sustainable only when others willingly play into your strategy. If they sense manipulation, rebellion brews. If they believe in your story, they become instruments of your design. But there is a dangerous temptation here, to confuse cleverness with wisdom. Outsmarting others can quickly degenerate into trickery for its own sake, a hollow game that wins temporary victories but breeds long-term emptiness. The true strategist does not manipulate recklessly. They wield power with patience, precision, and restraint. Outsmarting must serve vision, not vanity. As Friedrich Nietzsche once wrote, "Whoever fights monsters should see to it that in the process he does not become a monster." Outsmarting others is a perilous road. Each victory makes it easier to slip into arrogance, to view people as mere pawns, to forget that power without purpose destroys both wielder and victim. The danger is not merely being outsmarted by others, it is being consumed by your own games. And so, to advance further, we must explore the deeper battlefield, not the obvious arena of words and gestures, but the hidden terrain of psychology, where true control resides. Outsmarting anyone ultimately demands mastery over the unconscious forces that guide human behavior. To outsmart someone at the surface is to win a battle. To outsmart them at the level of the unconscious is to win a war. Most people live on autopilot, driven not by reason but by instincts, biases, and unresolved fears. If you learn to read these hidden currents, you stop playing the same game as everyone else. Instead, you rise above the board and move pieces while others remain unaware they are even playing. The greatest weapon in psychological warfare is anticipation. Human beings are creatures of pattern. Their words, their habits, even their mistakes repeat themselves. By paying attention, by studying the invisible rhythms of someone's behavior, you can predict their moves before they make them. The impatient man will always rush at the wrong time. The proud woman will always defend her image, even at great cost. The insecure will betray themselves for reassurance. Outsmarting others begins by mapping the cracks in their psychology and pressing only when it matters most. The second weapon is projection. People see in others what they cannot face in themselves. If you know this, you can turn their own mind into your ally. Someone who accuses you of dishonesty often harbors lies themselves. Someone obsessed with loyalty may secretly fear their own betrayal. Instead of resisting their accusations, let them unravel themselves. By reflecting their fears back at them without resistance, you let them expose their unconscious to the open air. Outsmarting at this level is not about argument, but about allowing people to reveal their own truths. The third weapon is anchoring emotion. If you can link yourself to an intense feeling in someone's mind, whether awe, gratitude, fear, or relief, you become unforgettable. People rarely remember facts, but they never forget how you made them feel. Imagine offering calm in the midst of someone's panic, or humor in the depths of their despair. That moment binds them to you unconsciously. Outsmarting others is not just about clever moves. It is about imprinting yourself into their emotional memory, becoming a reference point they cannot escape. The fourth weapon is framing. Whoever defines the terms of a situation controls its outcome. If you frame a loss as an opportunity, people adjust their behavior accordingly. If you frame obedience as freedom, people will serve you gladly. Outsmarting is less about overpowering resistance and more about making resistance unthinkable. Once you control the frame, you no longer argue, you redefine reality itself. The fifth weapon is the power of absence. Presence can be commanding, but absence can be haunting. When you deliberately withdraw your attention, your silence becomes louder than any words. People crave validation and fear abandonment. By mastering the art of calculated absence, pulling back at the moment they expect your engagement, you create uncertainty. Uncertainty breeds obsession. An obsession, carefully guided, makes others move in ways they would never admit to themselves. Psychological warfare, however, demands restraint. The temptation to overuse these weapons is immense. You may find yourself addicted to control, intoxicated by the ability to bend others effortlessly. But with every use, you must ask, is this move building something greater, or am I simply feeding vanity? The one who outsmarts others without purpose eventually finds themselves surrounded not by allies, but by puppets, and puppets cannot sustain a kingdom. Consider this: the most dangerous enemy you will ever face is not another strategist, but your own reflection. If you outsmart yourself, if you believe your own illusions, fall for your own deceptions, you will collapse from within. To practice psychological warfare effectively, you must remain grounded in clarity, immune to the very tricks you employ on others. This is the razor's edge of power. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." To outsmart others at the deepest level, you must illuminate the unconscious forces that rule them. But just as crucial, you must illuminate your own. Otherwise, the game will consume you. And so, the question emerges. Once you've mastered the psychological battlefield, how do you extend power beyond individuals, shaping entire groups, systems, and environments? To outsmart anyone is impressive. To outsmart everyone within a structure is the true seat of absolute power. It is one thing to outmaneuver an individual. It is another to bend an entire group to your design. This is where absolute power takes form, not in isolated victories, but in shaping the very environment in which others live and think. Outsmarting at the systemic level is the art of turning invisible influence into visible order, of creating a reality so convincing that resistance seems not only futile but unthinkable. The first principle of systemic power is control the narrative. Groups do not organize around truth. They organize around stories. Nations are held together not by raw facts, but by myths of identity and destiny. Corporations are propelled by visions of innovation or security. Families are bound by tales of loyalty and sacrifice. If you wish to outsmart not just one person but an entire collective, you must master the narrative they consume. Feed them stories that align with their desires, their fears, their sense of belonging, and they will follow you even when logic might resist. The second principle is divide and rule. A unified group is strong, but a divided one is malleable. Outsmarting at this level means identifying natural tensions, class, ambition, ideology, ego, and subtly amplifying them until unity fractures. Once divided, the group no longer focuses on resisting you. It turns its energy inward, wasting strength on internal disputes. Meanwhile, you rise quietly above the chaos, guiding outcomes under the guise of neutrality or reconciliation. The third principle is ritual and repetition. Groups crave predictability, symbols, and shared practices. Rituals anchor people emotionally, creating a sense of continuity and belonging. By introducing repeated patterns, whether in speech, gestures, or symbolic acts, you etch yourself into the collective psyche. Think of leaders who use slogans, gestures, or even silence as a unifying force. Outsmarting groups is not about overwhelming them with complexity, but about offering simple, repeatable cues that bypass thought and reach directly into habit. The fourth principle is scapegoating. Few forces unite people more powerfully than a common enemy. When you provide a group with something or someone to blame, you redirect their frustrations away from you and toward an external target. This scapegoat may be real or imagined, significant or trivial. Its purpose is not truth, but cohesion. Outsmarting a group means knowing when to deflect their collective anger and where to aim it, while you remain untouched in the shadows. The fifth principle is create dependency. A group that believes it needs you will never conspire against you. The key is not to appear as their oppressor, but as their protector, guide, or indispensable resource. Offer solutions to problems you yourself have quietly allowed to grow. Provide safety from dangers only you seem able to prevent. Outsmarting groups means weaving yourself so deeply into their functioning that imagining life without you feels impossible. These principles reveal a darker truth. People rarely realize when they are being outsmarted collectively. The very systems that govern their lives feel natural, inevitable, unquestionable. When power is embedded in ritual, story, and dependency, it becomes invisible. And the invisible is the most dangerous form of control, for what cannot be seen cannot easily be resisted. Yet there is a razor's edge here as well. Outsmarting individuals can make you feared. Outsmarting groups can make you worshipped, but worship curdles into resentment when illusions break. Systems built only on manipulation eventually collapse under their own weight. The strategist must therefore ask, am I building merely for control, or am I building something that can endure? As Machiavelli warned in The Prince, it is much safer to be feared than loved, if one must choose. But he also knew that fear without stability breeds revolt. Outsmarting groups is therefore an act of balance. Instilling enough fear to prevent challenge, enough loyalty to prevent desertion, and enough illusion to prevent awareness. And yet, even if you succeed, there remains a final and most dangerous battlefield, the battlefield of time itself. To outsmart anyone or any group today means nothing if tomorrow strips your power away. Thus, the ultimate question emerges. How do you outsmart time, ensuring not just victory, but legacy? Every strategist eventually faces the same grim realization. No matter how many individuals you outmaneuver, no matter how many groups you control, time itself is your ultimate opponent. Empires crumble, reputations fade, and even the most cunning minds fall victim to the erosion of memory. What is absolute power worth if it dissolves the moment you are gone? Outsmarting anyone is impressive. Outsmarting everyone is extraordinary. But outsmarting time, that is the highest game of all. The first rule of enduring power is institutionalization. A single person's will is fragile, but when it becomes embedded into laws, customs, or organizations, it survives beyond the body that birthed it. The great conquerors of history were not simply warriors. They were architects of systems that encoded their vision. To truly outsmart time, you must craft structures that perpetuate your influence long after your presence is removed. The clever leader leaves not only orders, but rituals, hierarchies, and myths that replicate their authority across generations. The second rule is symbol over self. Flesh decays, but symbols endure. If your power is tied only to your name or presence, it vanishes with you. But if you embody an idea, justice, rebellion, progress, destiny, then your influence stretches into the future, because people do not fight for men, they fight for meanings. Outsmarting time means transforming yourself into more than a figure. It means becoming a story that cannot be untold. The third rule is adaptation through successors. No fortress is invincible, no empire eternal, unless successors carry the flame. To outsmart time, you must not hoard knowledge, but transmit it carefully, choosing disciples who will extend your vision while adapting it to survive new circumstances. The greatest failure of power is not defeat, but the absence of continuity. Outsmarting time requires planting seeds of loyalty so deep that even after your departure, others nurture what you began. The fourth rule is strategic invisibility. Sometimes, the only way to survive beyond your lifespan is to retreat from the foreground into the background of culture. When your ideas, systems, and influence become so natural that no one questions them, you no longer need to be remembered personally. Your hand shapes the world even when your name is forgotten. This is the paradox. The more invisible your control becomes, the longer it lasts. The fifth rule is alignment with the eternal. Power built on vanity collapses quickly. Power aligned with human nature endures. If you exploit only temporary trends, your strategies die when fashions shift. But if you root your influence in enduring truths, the need for order, the hunger for meaning, the fear of chaos, your power is renewed with each generation. Outsmarting time means anchoring yourself not in the fleeting, but in the timeless. And yet, there is a haunting question. If all power is transient, if even the most enduring legacies fade into dust, why pursue it at all? Perhaps the answer is not to cling to permanence, but to master impermanence itself, to play the game knowing it cannot be won forever, but that it can be prolonged, shaped, and used to carve meaning from the void. To outsmart anyone is to win a battle. To outsmart time is to embrace the inevitability of loss while still bending the present toward your design. In the end, the ultimate paradox of absolute power emerges. The only way to truly outsmart time may be to transcend the need for power itself. To use the strategies of control, influence, and mastery not for vanity, but for creation. To outsmart not just others, but the very hunger within that drives us endlessly toward dominance. For the greatest danger of all is not being outsmarted by enemies, rivals, or history. It is being outsmarted by your own ambition. As Marcus Aurelius reflected in Meditations, what we do now echoes in eternity. The echo may fade, but while it rings, it can shake the world. Outsmarting anyone, then, is not the final triumph. The true victory is to forge echoes so powerful they outlast your voice, your body, your time. And that is the essence of absolute power. Not a fleeting game of cleverness, but the art of bending perception, psychology, systems, and time itself, until the world moves as you will it, even when you are gone.